Hi everyone, and welcome here to a special edition of the Gyms Group podcast and a video version and audio version if you're listening. So we're here with Jim, the CEO and founder of the group, and we do this every week. And obviously in trying times, we thought we'd provide an update with everything that's been happening. So I've got a list of questions that have come via the way of various franchisees and franchisors, Jim. So I'll start reading these out to you.
Sure.
So can we have some further clarification on the whole approach to fees? There still is a lot of confusion regarding the fees and suspensions and how this all works. Yeah. Can you please provide an update on that?
Well, basically, fees is up to franchisors. It's not something that the Gyms Group National controls or can control. So a franchisor is able to suspend franchisees at their own discretion if there's really not enough work and they can't work at all for some reason. They can also reduce fees if they wish to. The one offer we've made as national is that if they dramatically reduce their fees, if they reduce all their fees by a certain proportion, we'll reduce our fees by a set proportion too.
Right.
And the same thing too is if a franchisor has to suspend fees and reduce fees to the extent that their income drops by more than half, then we'll also look at reducing our national fees as well.
Okay, and the best way for a regional franchisor to have that happen, is it email finance or is it email Jim, or how does that work?
Yeah, email myself.
Email Jim. All right, so jim@gyms.net. Okay, so where is the best place to get up-to-date information regarding the whole COVID? Because we've had a few people, obviously Facebook's a big source of information for people, however that can be really misleading. So what do you recommend in regards to information?
I just use mainstream media like the Australian or anybody else. They have pretty good updates. And there's government websites that deal with this. If you just type in coronavirus update, this kind of thing, or you'll get plenty of information about what's to be done.
Yeah, so what we'll do is after this, we'll put a big list together and we'll put that as an attachment. So all the government websites in your state, because states obviously vary in their measures, and also there's a COVID helpline apparently. So there's a phone number where people can ring up and be unsure. And the whole thing, I think, which is applicable to our guys, is the essential travel or the essential service, yes, which seems to be a lot of confusion.
There really isn't any reason for, in Australia, in New Zealand they're in total lockdown, but in Australia there's no reason why all of our divisions can't keep on working, and they are. Some are more affected than others, like building inspections and test and tag are probably the worst affected. Some, like mowing and pools and so forth, seem to be little affected at all. So most of our franchisees are still working, and there's no reason why they can't. Just proper precautions. Keep personal distance. Try and get paid electronically. Just those kinds of issues.
Now, the essential. So, from what we know as well, because there's been a bit of confusion. I know there's been a lot of Facebook posts going around with people saying they've been pulled over by police, and obviously the social distancing in cars. And we've had, I think, franchisors mentioning about franchisees with their workers, because if they obviously have a work ute with 2 seats, they're a bit unsure on where that all stands. So, what advice do you have for?
My understanding is that you can have 2 people in the car where they should be as far apart as possible. Driver's seat, back, left seat.
Right.
If there's more than 2 people need to be at a job, then just have 2 cars.
So 2 cars.
But there's no limit on more than 2 people being on a site. There's actually, if you look it up, there's actually pictures showing multiple people in the same site. So as long as you travel there in a way that doesn't breach personal distance and keep personal distance on the job, there's no reason why somebody can't be working in the front yard and somebody on the back and somebody else doing gardening and so forth.
I think a great example of that is obviously a lot of roadworks going on, particularly in Melbourne, and you see that if you cross the West Gate or whatever, you see like 8 people in an area working.
And building sites, the same thing.
Yeah.
They seem to ignore, the government seems to ignore the home service industry, but really we're probably about as close to the building industry as you could think of in terms of, and we're not restricted in any way.
So I know there's been a lot of confusion, and there's people in Facebook which probably haven't helped it, posting things like, this person's been fined or whatever. So the best thing for them is to refer to any government website.
I don't know of anybody, I've never heard of anybody being fined for going about their job in a normal way, keeping proper personal distance. The restrictions are very much on social activities.
The other one which has been interesting is we have a lot of franchisees in Albury-Wodonga. Obviously, it's the Victorian New South Wales border, and they're travelling interstate. And there's been a bit of confusion around that as well.
And the same thing between Queensland and New South Wales. People actually get stopped and asked why they're going interstate. I don't know the reason for it really, because there's people infected on both sides of the border. But the thing I would say about this whole business is that we've probably really passed the worst, in my view. If you look at the statistics on new infections, deaths is a different thing because that reflects to what happened weeks or months ago. But if you look at new infections, back in late March, we were getting like up to 450 new infections per day. Now we are testing extensively. This country is probably testing as much as any country in the world. Per capita, we're getting about 100 per day. So there's been a drastic drop in new infections being found. So the system is working. It's actually getting better. And in my view, we're going to be in for a tough month or two. But I would see things gradually coming back to normal.
And I'll also say to people, we do a weekly Facebook Live with Jim as well, and we obviously do the podcast, so make sure, that's probably the best place for news. Obviously, we do a monthly newsletter, but in this environment, every week, 7 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time, Jim does a weekly Facebook Live on the Jim's Group Facebook page. Now, let's talk about mental health. So obviously, mental health is a big issue even regardless of the COVID situation going on, and now, especially now, it can sort of be exacerbated with what's happening. So what advice do you have for franchisees or franchisors in that regard?
Keep in touch. Keep in touch with your franchisor. Keep in touch with your fellow franchisees, with people that you know. Isolation isn't good for us, but we've got a community here in gyms. People should take advantage of that. Important to reach out for help. We have a mentors list which is available online. You can get it through
Gyms Online. Yeah.
Gyms Online. You can go in there. There's actual franchisees who have volunteered their time to have a chat. Now it's completely confidential. It's just another franchisee who said, "Hey, I'd like to help out," and these wonderful men and women are just prepared to talk to you. There's also helplines. There's all kinds of mental health lines. If anybody's got that. The fridge magnet that we sent you?
Yes. We've got a list here, so I'll read a couple of them out. We'll put a list as well, but obviously Beyond Blue's one that we push a lot, which is 1300 22 4636 or beyondblue.org.au, and we'll put a list of those various things here. But some of the points that we'll provide, I think this was done by a franchisor, which I've got in front of me. Manage your exposure to media coverage, which I think is really important. If you go on Facebook or you go on news.com.au, you just see all doom and gloom. So maybe manage yourself's exposure to that.
People are overreacting. The fear is quite extraordinary for something that really, most of us, there's virtually no chance of death. I mean, it's really like an extreme flu epidemic. The people who are dying are overwhelming those who've got serious medical conditions. So if you know somebody who's in that bracket, who's got serious conditions, they're ill, they've got other infections, they've got anything at all, then that you've got to be super, super careful. But for most of us, reasonable precautions, just keeping personal distance and just reasonable hygiene, washing your hands and so forth, the chance of actually anything bad happening to you or your family is quite minor.
Yeah, I think thoughts are thoughts and facts are facts. That's that's a saying that I like a lot. But the next one here was basically much what you said, follow a calm yet cautious approach. So obviously try and be calm, but do take a lot of precautions, which I know people are doing various things with that. Another great one, which I saw on this list here, which is show compassion and kindness to one another. Now, I think that's very important in this time. Everyone can be highly stressed, but take a bit of a step back, relax, take a deep breath, show a bit of kindness and compassion to other people.
It's actually good to reach out to people, just to approach people that fellow franchisees and so forth, and just say hello and how you're getting on and this kind of thing. I find it's good. I've been in touch with a lot more people lately, and one thing I do hear too is that franchisors tend to be doing a wonderful job. I often hear from franchisees how their franchisors just in touch with them and reassuring them and so forth, and that's really great to hear.
And we also have a lot of Facebook groups online. So we do have a Jim's Group franchisee only Facebook group, which has got around 300 and something franchisees in it. So if you're not a member, join it, or the Jim's Group Facebook page community group as well, which has got 400 members in it. So join it. We do have some franchisees posting various things and saying, post this, catch it for a beer and all that sort of stuff. So join in there.
And there's some wonderful ideas going around too about how to cope with the situation, how to do even better. Actually, there's one division in gyms which is doing fantastically well. It loves this crisis, and that's Home Fresh.
Yeah, we wouldn't say they love the crisis, but the demand for their service has gone out of control.
Possibly badly phrased, but it's been an incredible boost for them. They're doing, I think they did $150,000 worth of deliveries last week, and
in a week,
in a single week, and people are loving it. The biggest problem is just trying to keep up with the demand.
Yeah, the website's getting smashed. It can't handle it at the moment, so it's quite full on. And the last thing on this list here, which we provided, which we're going to upload as well, was actively manage your well-being by maintaining routines where possible. As you said before, connect with family and friends, staying physically active, which I think is important. And the good thing about owning a gym's franchise is that you are active. If you're a mowing franchisee or a cleaning franchisee or antennas, you're actually out and about doing stuff. So shouldn't be a problem for that.
I see a lot of fear. I see people who sort of so much fear about loss of work and so forth and everything else. And I look and I say, but you're not even asking for work outside territory. And they say, oh yeah, well we just think things are going to get bad, but it doesn't reflect what's happening. It's just fear getting away from yourself.
Thoughts are thoughts, facts are facts. So always deal with the facts. And the mentor list is a great thing which you pointed out. So Jim's online. Now another question we had is, what is some proactive steps that franchisees can take to maintain their business or during this time?
Well, we need to be active in marketing. Many franchisees are simply not affected in any significant way. There's plenty of work. We're getting a bit less unserviced work these days, which is great, because we've had this overload of work. we've had a massive amount of jobs we can't handle in normal times. But if you are running short of work, there's some great stuff going out to customers. You can reassure customers about safety, tell customers about things you're doing to reduce infection. There's some wonderful, in the last franchisee newsletter, there's an example of something sent out which is very effective. There's a mowing guy sent out a message to his backlist talking about safety precautions and so forth, and immediately got some work out of it. Within seconds of it going out, he got a first guttering job. So there's your backlist is a great resource. Go to your people you've used in the past and just show them what you're doing. Show them how you can help them cope with the crisis. Cleaning is an example of that. I can help you to stay safe, but we can do this for you. We can do that for you. Now's a good time to do it. Get your gutters cleared so that you don't have any water damage to your house, because you don't want people coming to fix a roof. You'd rather keep yourself secure. And we can contribute to your safety and well-being. There's
also a certificate for COVID-19 on the health website if you type it in, which I know some franchisees have done as well, and they show that. What about people? Because the comment we've seen coming a lot is that clients don't want us coming into the home. What extra advice do you have for people who are getting that knockback?
Well, when it comes to something like cleaning, I think the thing to emphasise is that we're actually your first line of defence, because the virus sticks around on surfaces. So we come in regularly and clean. Some cleaning franchises are actually flat out. They've actually got boosted by it. It's often a case of how you present yourself to the client as a safety thing. But really, the risk of infection is pretty minor. I mean, if you're not in the same room as the client, and there's no reason why you actually these days have to touch a client or even go near them. You can talk even by phone in the same environment. Be in a different room, and then you just clean up after yourself and so forth.
Well, they have created a new service code, I think last week, which is the disinfectant specialised cleaning service. And there's a few videos they're doing to their group shortly.
Which anybody can do, not just cleaning franchisees too.
Yeah, that's been good by the cleaning divisional hater, and said that yes, it will be available to everyone, not just his division. So stay tuned for that one. That's going to be good. And you're right. I would say also in regards to being proactive, is just go to your franchisor and actually ask them for strategies on marketing stuff, or what can they do, and let them hold you accountable. If you need that sort of, some people need to be held accountable by someone to do this stuff. So go and get a list of items from them to do.
And look at cross-divisional work. Now we're easing the situation slightly, as we've told in the past, but so we don't actually demand that you get the insurance up front, but you can start doing the work and then get the insurance sorted out. If you're going to be doing gutters, you need the proper equipment and, get a working with height certificate, which isn't very hard to get hold of.
Yeah, and depending on the cross-divisional service, please make sure you do have the right certificate if one is applicable, if there is insurance. Obviously, we want you to get that, but in light of the situation, you did ease up on that one. Normally, it was insurance first, then the cross-divisional service code assigned. But please get that sorted out. Now, let's talk about the... Now, this is one which was pointed out to me, which is, can you please explain for everyone, you sort of touched at the start, the difference between the national and franchisors' expectations. So franchisees obviously might have a different expectation of national or the franchisor. So what do you see as the expectations?
Expectation in terms of
from franchisees should have in regards to the franchisor's responsibility to them and national's responsibility to them during this time?
Well, anything to do with fees is to do with franchisors.
Okay.
People often think that I personally set the fees, but I don't actually, and I don't collect most of them myself either. We collect a proportion. So if it's anything to do with fees, you talk to your franchisor. Your franchisor is the first guide to anything around that. We can just talk general policy overall, including things like cross-divisional, where it goes across different divisions.
Okay. So and then the franchisor with the fee proportion stuff you were saying at the start will then come to you. So that's obviously if the franchisee goes to the ZOR for some free relief or whatever and it's applied, then the franchisor would come to you and that adjustment would be made.
Because we want to make sure that franchisors who do the right thing when franchisees are really suffering, which they are in one or two divisions, we're not going to ask them to cut their fees and keep ours the same. Everybody's got a share in the hurt.
And can we just make it clear as well for them how to obtain cross-divisional? So they watch this and go, yeah, I want to do cross-divisional. What do I find out what's available, all that sort of stuff?
Just email jim@jims.net.
So email jim@jims.net if you're a franchisee?
It's a very simple process. I can actually tell you what work is available, and you can actually then from that figure out that, and then you can figure out what you want. For example, if you're doing mowing jobs, which are still available in some areas, do you have a lawnmower? Is gardening okay? Can you take rubbish? You want to do gutters? Given the equipment and so forth, and the working with height certificates. So I'll just work it out. I'll put you down for it. It's a very simple process.
Just out of interest as well, what type of work have you been asked for cross-divisional?
Mainly mowing. There is strangely some vacate cleans going on. I don't know why exactly, but you'd think the clean division would cope with those ones pretty well. But they're good jobs because they're big
it's good. They pay well. Yeah, exactly right.
Usually talking about several $100s, and you can clean somebody's house when they're moving out.
Well, if someone had to clean my rental, it'll probably be $2,000 for them. So just giving them a heads up there. Now, let's talk about the actual. So I've got some key messages as well. So let's make it clear that National is here to support everyone. I know that. It can be quite frustrating as well sometimes for everyone, but National is here to support, so please use your franchisor and use Jim as well. I know you're getting a lot of, just out of interest, are you still getting bombarded with a lot of queries? Or?
Oh, I get quite a few franchisees approaching me, multiple franchisees and franchisors every day, and as anybody knows, try to respond pretty fast.
Yep.
I still focus on customer service. I know some people think that in the crisis we should forget about customer service and complaints and things, but the reality of it is, when work is quiet, we need jobs. We can't afford to slacken our service standards and therefore have less work for franchisees who need it. So the tougher the environment, the more important it is to look after customers. So in other words, don't just think because it's a crisis it's okay, you don't have to ring somebody back or follow them up, because it's a crisis. Well, you really do need to do that. And if you can't follow customers up, don't take the jobs in the first place. Okay. Because somebody else will need that work, and that'll help to feed their family.
And just letting franchisors know that training is online now, and be ready to go from tomorrow, and we'll do a bit of a video announcement with it.
And I'll also be there to be able to answer queries.
Yes.
So people do the training. I'm going to try and we're still working out how it's going to happen, but I'm going to have a little thing open on my desktop, and I'm going to, as far as possible, I'm going to answer questions as quickly as I can when they come in on the open forum.
Yeah, so in the discussion, for any franchisor or prospect that does see this, Jim will be personally answering the questions. So try and make them as clear as possible.
We'll see what happens.
We'll give it a crack at the start anyway.
I can't promise to answer questions at 2 a.m, because you can do it any time, but during the daytime I should generally be able to answer questions fairly fast.
I've tried to make that clear, and just to point out, it's quite a new process for everyone. So the boys have done a great job. And we picked the system advised to us by Manny, which is a franchisor. So we are trying our best with it. It will probably change and improve as we go. I know we're going to reshoot a lot of the content as well, because it's currently the lectures that was recorded, which is the best we can do. But we're going to get the people to come in and actually shoot individualised sessions as well.
Sometimes in the lectures they have the speaker goes off the camera.
Yeah.
And all you're looking at is a blank blackboard or whiteboard. So it does need to be improved. The stuff is good, but the visuals can be improved.
Correct. It's all the same content, but we'll try and fix up the visuals with the trainers coming in. So anything you want to leave everyone with, Jim, at the moment? Any sort of messages?
I just say, look, we're here to support you. I'm happy to talk to any franchisee, any franchisor who's got any kind of issues. I really am available, generally speaking. I appreciate the hard work a lot of people are doing. The many franchisors and franchisees who are just helping each other and reaching out. And look, as a group, as individual franchisees hurting, we recognise that, and we'll do whatever we can for you. But as a group, we're doing quite well. And I think, as I said before, we've passed the worst. I think things are going to ease, going to go better. It's important to take proper precautions, but not to overreact or panic. Things aren't all that bad for most of us.
So let's leave it there. So please take Jim up on his offer at jim@jims.net. You're not bothering him. Please email him and take him up on that offer.
People often say, I know you're so busy. I'm actually not that busy. There's nothing that's more important to me than to know how my franchisees and franchise. I think it's nice too. People actually contact me and then they ask, about something else, and they say, how's your family going? I said, yeah, it's great. We're doing this and this. We missed our church and stuff. And then you write back to them. It's quite nice to have that kind of interaction.
And send through some positive news as well. I'd love for a bit more positive news than negative news in this time.
It is really nice to hear about somebody doing well. It's also great too, because I can pass the ideas on. I get an idea and I say, wow, this is fantastic. And I put it in like that one in the newsletter. That was the franchisee just approaching me and saying, this is what I've done and it's worked. So I pass it out to everybody. Absolutely.
And we've got a lot of suggestions coming through now. It's been great, actually. We've got franchisees sitting through work, which is important. So social media at jims.net, they're sitting us before and after jobs. I've only got really mowing and antennas at the moment. So I'm one out of the divisions. So take a before and after job, send it to us and we post it, still operating.
People complain, why don't you showcase the other divisions? And they say, well, because you're not sending us stuff.
Correct. That's exactly right. And that's what I always say. So social media at jims.net, we'll post anything. So we are and we have been. So please do it there. And also Facebook Live every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time with Jim. He does a live Q&A format for an hour. And if you've got any questions for Jim, please email them through to jim@jims.net or social media at jims.net. And we can do this again next week with an update. Because the situation, I think we point out, is fluid. We don't know what will happen in a week. Even though it could be good, we never know. So we'll try and do our best next week as well.
All right. Well, I'll see you Wednesday night or next week.
That's it. Thank you, guys.